Okay, so you're gonna take your piece of tracing paper and you're gonna kind of see if you can do your best to find the middle, okay? When you use a compass like this, you'll see there's these tabs here, okay? You want the tabs up because if you have it down, your compass won't move. See? Flip it over and your compass swings, okay? So I'm gonna find the center of my tracing paper and I'm gonna make my circle as big as I can. Well, these sides are pretty long, this is short, so I'm gonna use this to decide how wide I can make my circle, and I'm gonna come right about here. Okay, so I'm holding the center, and then if I get here where my hand is in the way, I'm just gonna very carefully use the center to rotate it out of the way. Okay, so there's my circle. All right, does that make sense? Any questions about this step? All right, then I'm going to do my best to divide it into equal sections. You can divide it into fourths, or you can divide it into eighths, okay? So I'm at a 6-inch diameter. That means right around 3 inches is going to be the middle. So I'm going to draw a line that goes that way, and a line that is about 3 inches this way. So that's the middle of my circle. Okay. Now you can keep your mandala like this into 4 sections, or if you want a more intricate mandala, you can divide it into eighths. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this ruler's in the way of my printer. I'm just going to measure from here to here and kind of think, okay, I'm right about here halfway because I need to divide this wedge in half if I'm going to do eighths. Does that make sense? Yes. Cool. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and you might not be exact, but you're going to do the best you can. And you're going to divide that wedge in half. So that's where I want my marks. So what I'm going to do now is connect. And see, you can tell right now I'm a little off, right? So I'm going to adjust because I want this to go right through the middle. All right. Same thing here. If I can, I'll connect these tick marks. Okay, so I'm a little off, so I got to kind of come back here. See how I'm going right through the middle? I've got a dot there. I don't see any of the lines crossing. There's no spaces in between here. All right, so now I have it divided. Next step, your second piece of tracing paper, okay? I'm just gonna place it on top, and I'm gonna trace one pie piece, one wedge. Okay, so there's my pie piece, yes? Okay, I'm gonna put this aside for now. And I can design anything I want to design in here with a couple of guidelines. One, when we go to carve our foam, we're going to be carving it with a pen or a really dull pencil. So you're not going to be able to get really tiny, tiny little details in there because the tips are not going to be small enough. We're going to work a little bit wider. So when you carve, instead of doing tiny, tiny, tiny designs like this, let's say you want like these circles in here, that won't carve very well. Does that make sense? So if you want a bunch of circles together, actually make them bigger circles so that when we carve, we can see them. Otherwise, this is just going to be a bunch of bumps. Does that make sense? So all I have to do is decide how I want my wedge to look. I'm also going to think about spreading out my lines. If I have lines really close together, when the ink fills that, it's going to all bleed together. And it doesn't even matter what you do, you can decide. Okay, maybe I want some curves in here. But you see how I'm kind of spreading out my lines? They're not really super close together. That's really important. And maybe I want one more there. All right, so that's my wedge. Okay, so now I'm ready to go. So now I'm gonna place my circle on top and I'm gonna line up my wedge as best I can. And I'm going to trace what I just drew. So again, you don't have to worry about remembering where things go, eyeballing it. You just get to trace it, which is so much easier. Okay, so there's my one wedge. Now, instead of scooting this over, and if you want, you can cut your pie piece out. Instead of just scooting it directly over, does anything line up if I do that? No, I need to flip my pie piece because then you'll see everything lines up. See how it all connects? Okay. So that when I go to trace it, and if you want to, you can trace on the other side of your wedge so it's darker. But I want to take the time and really line it up. And it might not be exact because, you know, we're human. Okay, so that's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and trace this side now. And now I should have a mirror image when I'm done. Okay, I think I got everything. All right, so now I have a mirror image. All right, so what's my next step? What do I have to do before I trace my next wedge? I have to flip it again. You got it. So I'm gonna flip it over, line it up with this wedge as best I can, and create another mirror image until my whole mandala is done. Okay? Any questions about this? This is the only thing we're going to work on for the next day or two. Okay? So each person needs a compass and 2 pieces of tracing paper for this step.